Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Well, that's interesting. I've been doing this for a day or two. You'd think that I would have all this stuff down, but evidently I don't. Hey, y'all. Happy Sunday. Hope it's all going well for you. It's been a week. Before we even get started, for those who have, let me just say the outpouring of support and love for my wife and her surgery has been overwhelming. I want to thank everybody for the well wishes, for the prayers, and the hopes for speedy recovery. She is doing just fine. Um, uh, the We knew that she was going to need a walker for a little while. I went down to a thrift store and I bought one for a grand total of $9, I might say. And I'm ready to donate it back to that thrift shop because she has outgrown the walker and is moving around the house like she never had any surgery at all. So she's doing very, very well. Thank you, everybody, for the overwhelming support. To be honest, it's gotten a little embarrassing at a few times, but we both greatly, greatly appreciate it. She is doing just fine. So thank you again. Um, Today is a little bit of a roundabout. Um, the route in which I picked this topic was a little bit of a roundabout thing. But before we get involved in any of that, I want to say a special thank you and give a shout out to Steve over at Harneal Media. You see him in the chat. Steve's there. He's my only moderator, and I like it that way. Um, my relationship with Steve goes back several years, and I'm proud to call him a friend. Uh, but beyond that, if you're even toying with the idea of a website, give Harneal Media a try. That's the only thing I can say. You'll find that he's very, very competitively priced. He's just a good person. He's very competitively priced. As I say, it's 100% personalized service, and he'll do as much or as little as you want. If you're a seasoned veteran and know how to run a website, you're just looking for a host, he'll take care of you. If you're like me and have no idea what the heck you're doing with a website, he'll take care of you. You owe it to yourself to reach out to Harneal Media at harnealmedia.com and click that little contact us button and shoot him a message. If you are getting sick and tired of paying listing fees to put a product or a service on a third party website, if you're getting sick and tired of paying a commission for every sale, and if you're getting sick and tired of watching your competition be advertised on the same page your products and services are being advertised, then you owe it to yourself to start thinking about divesting from those third party websites and taking control of your business. And there's no better way to do that than with your own website. And Steve over at Harneal Media is the only person I'm ever going to recommend. Number one, it's 100% personalized service. When you deal with Harneal Media, you deal with Steve, not some nameless, faceless person in a call center that you're never going to talk to again. Number two, very competitively priced. And number three, just damn good service. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So you'll find a link to Harneal Media in the description of every video and every live stream on this channel. That's that way for a reason. Get over there, click that contact us link, shoot Steve a message. You will be happy that you did. Believe me. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for everything you do. And I hope everything is going great for you and yours. Okay, let's see. The topic today was actually selected by a, um, a subscriber who shot me an email, and it based on basically things going in the background. I kind of had to juggle around a little bit, and I finally answered his email. And I decided that this was a good topic to get into, and that is the boundary offset within both the 3D roughing and the 3D finishing toolpaths. What it is, what it's for, and how it's used. And simply put, the boundary offset is there. What's the easiest way to put this? It actually allows the center of the bit to move beyond any boundary that you have created in a 3D carve. Let's go over to a screen share and I'll show you exactly what I mean. We're here in Aspire, but again, this works exactly the same way in VCarve Pro. So this is for everybody here. I have here the eagle from the Vectric clip art, and I have drawn a vector around that eagle. That's my machining boundary. So that's all the setup that I need for this. So I'm going to jump over here and I'm going to create a toolpath. Well, before I do anything, I'm going to go into material setup and I'm going to make sure that I've got my material thickness correct and I've got my XY datum correct. Now, when it comes to the model position in the material, what I tend to do is I put a gap above the model of 0.01. Now, what this does is you can see that the model thickness is 0.7199 of an inch. So not quite 3/4 of an inch. But you'll also see that we have in this illustration over here, let me take this out again. We'll backspace that. We see the slider is up at the top. There is no gap above the material. That means the model is taking up all of this lighter colored area. Then we have this little shaded area at the bottom because the model is so thick. This is a material that's not included as a part of the model. The model is going to be carved from the surface down to this point. I put a gap above the model of 0.01. That makes this area up here that is not occupied by the model. That means the bit's going to have to carve down through this before it gets to the highest point of this model. I have found over the years that if I don't put this little gap above the model, I might possibly get a flat spot where the machine reads the top of the material as well as the top of the model and just lifts up and doesn't bother cutting it. So I put that gap above the model so that it has to carve through this 0.010 of an inch before it gets to the model. That way you get a nice clean surface with none of the surface that you're trying to cut through left behind, no flat spots. Okay, so with this all set, we can come out of material setup. Now, just for time considerations, I'm not going to bother with a 3D roughing toolpath. I'll just jump straight ahead into the 3D finishing. But as you can see here in the roughing toolpath, we have a boundary offset. So this will work exactly the same way in the roughing toolpath as it will in the finishing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to bother with a 3D roughing. Just know that these work exactly the same. Okay, to machine this, I'm going to use a 1/8 inch tapered ball nose. Okay, and my machine limiting boundary is the selected vector right there. Now I'm going to carve it without a boundary offset. So we'll leave that 0. Now for this, it doesn't matter if I'm using offset or raster, it'll all be the same, okay? For this, it doesn't matter. And I'll go ahead and leave everything else as it is, and I'll calculate the toolpath. Now that we have the toolpath calculated, doing nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and just preview it. Get that out of the way. And again, if you have any questions, by all means, please put them in the chat and we'll get to them in due course. And any questions, whether it has anything to do with this presentation or anything else. Oh. All right, we're about there. Okay, we're finished. Now we can zoom in and we can see that tapered ball nose, it's done a fairly good job. It carved to that vector and then stopped. So now what we need to do is we need to, I want to cut this eagle out. We need to go ahead and do a profile toolpath. So for that, I have the profile selected. Now I'll click on this. My cut depth is going to be the thickness of my material. And I'm going to use a 1/4 inch end mill because I don't have an 1/8 inch end mill that'll cut 3/4 of an inch deep. And that's just for this demonstration. And I'm not going to worry about any allowance offset or anything like that. I'm not going to do a separate last pass. I'm not going to add tabs. I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to calculate it. All right, so we're all set to go. We'll go ahead and we'll preview that. And now I'll click on the waste material. Now let me zoom in here and we'll see what we have going on. What's happened here is that tapered ball nose has carved just to the edge of the model where that boundary vector was. And you can see we've also left a little bit of flash here. We've got some spikes pointing up. Now, some of that may have to do with the fact that I used an 1/8 inch ball nose to cut the model and a 1/4 inch bit to cut out the model. You can see here there's a little spot here that didn't get cut out. But also, if you look around here on the edges, you can see a little bit of flash, just a little bit of a ridge around the model that looks like it didn't get carved. So what we'll do, we'll go back to a straight top view, and I'm going to reset the preview. And the way I'm going to clean that up is with a boundary offset in my 3D finishing toolpath. Now again, 3D roughing toolpath, this works exactly the same way. So let's go back into my 3D finishing toolpath. And right here we have a section called boundary offset. Now what a boundary offset is it allows the bit to go past this boundary vector just enough to where it's carving all the way to the edge of the model. So okay, let's back up for just a second. When the software calculates a toolpath, all of the calculations begin with the center of the bit. All of this is calculated based on the center of that bit. So it knows with a 1/8 inch tapered ball nose, wherever the center of that bit is, the cutting edge of that bit is half of the diameter of this bit. So it's actually stopping the tip of that bit, the center of that bit, in this case, 1/16 of an inch away from this border. And that's why you're getting that little bit of curved flash right here on the edge is because that's the radius of the bit that's carving this model. What a boundary offset is it allows the tip of that bit to go beyond this boundary by whatever diameter you set here, by whatever measurement you set here. Now, 8 Center is asking, how do you know how much of a boundary to add? That's very simple. You enter the diameter of the largest bit you're carving with. So in my case, I only have one bit here. It's an 1/8 tapered ball nose. So my boundary offset is going to be 1/8 of an inch. So 0.125. Now, if I had another bit here, say a 1/16 inch tapered ball nose, to take care of any details, my boundary offset would still be 1/8 of an inch because that's the largest bit I'm carving this with. Okay. The boundary offset is the diameter of the bit you're carving with. So if it's metric, if you're using a 3 millimeter bit, your boundary offset would be 3 millimeters. So and again, it doesn't matter if you go an offset or raster. Let me go ahead and calculate this toolpath now that we're using the boundary offset, and we'll preview all of the toolpaths. It's only the 3D toolpath that has been changed and recalculated. So that boundary offset is there to allow the bit to go past the edge of the model, past that vector, and allow it to cut the complete edge of the model. And you'll see it is carving, it's already carving wider than it did before. And now we'll get rid of our waste. And now if I rock this eagle back a little bit, we can see I don't have that sharp, harsh edge anymore. That's all gone. I don't have those spikes sticking up. It's nice and clean. That has got a nice smooth look. So let's see, 8 Center says, and this only takes effect on the outer edges. Yes, it only takes effect on the outer edges. Let me go back to the top. I'm going to reset the preview, turn on the vectors here. I'm going to close this. And we can see the vector right here. If we look in the 2D view, we can see the vector. So if I click on this, and it's not going to give me a preview. Nope, it's not going to give me a preview of that. Okay. But if I click on the profile, it does give me the preview of the profile. Well, anyhow, if I turn on the 3D view, I have the vectors turned on, but you can't see it. Yes, you can. There we go. This is my border right there. That's my boundary. But this blue line out here, that's where the bit is coming to. The bit's going to come out this direction beyond this, allowing it to carve this edge of the model. So the boundary offset only affects the edges of the model. So that's what the boundary offset is. That's why it's used. That's how it's used. And remember, it doesn't matter if it's the 3D roughing or the 3D finishing. For example, on the 3D roughing toolpath, I have a 1/4 inch end mill. my boundary offset is a 1/4 inch. 3D finishing toolpath, I'm using an 1/8 inch tapered ball nose. My boundary offset is an 1/8 of an inch. So that is going to take care of all that flash, all those little spikes, and anything left over in a 3D carve. Now, this is especially true in a model that is raised. It's less obvious if you're carving a dish, for example. Let me add a sheet here. I'll add a new sheet, make it the same as this one. Double click to go into this sheet, and let's get into the clip art. And I'll do the eagle in a dish on this sheet. Hold down Shift just to increase the size a little bit from the center. Click off on there. There we go. I'll come into the Design tab. Because I'm cutting a dish, I want a 0 plane, simply so it'll fill in any rough edges here, these rough edges. So I want to put a 0 plane over the top of this. So I'll come down here and I'll hold down Shift and click Create a Flat Shape, and that gives me a 0 plane. All right. So now I'll come over here. Oh, wait a minute. I got one more thing to do. Hold on. Go back into the 2D view, select my model, and I'm going to draw a vector around the component. Okay. Sam Spade is saying if the roughing is a 1/4 inch and the finishing is an 1/8 of an inch, is the boundary offset 0.12 for both? No, sir. Again, the diameter of the bit. It doesn't matter if they're two different diameters for the roughing, because I'm using a 1/4 inch end mill. The boundary offset will be a 1/4 of an inch. If the finishing, the largest bit in the finishing toolpath is an 1/8 of an inch, the boundary offset in that toolpath will be an 1/8 of an inch. The reason for that is you want a little bit of clearance. Is to hog away most of the material that's in the way of carving the model to make life easier on that 1/8 inch bit. The end mill coming out a 1/4 of an inch removes material that the 1/8 inch bit would otherwise come out and try to carve away as well. So it's just simple. Remember that your boundary offset should always be the diameter of the bit that you're using. 8 Center is asking, would you need to set a boundary offset for both? Yes. Yes. And again, that's simply the roughing toolpath's job is to make life easier for the finishing bit. Just clear out all that material. If I'm using my 1/2 inch end mill, my boundary offset for the roughing is a 1/2 inch. If I'm using a 1/16 inch end mill, the boundary offset for my finishing toolpath is a 1/16 of an inch. So it's just it's one of those rules of thumb, and there are very few exceptions. Again, I have my vector boundary here. Let's jump over, and I will do I'm going to do a roughing for this. I don't really need to, but what the heck. Selected vector, boundary offset of a 1/4 of an inch. Doing 3D raster. My machining allowance is 0.04. What this means is my end mill will not get any closer to the model than 0.04. It's going to hog out the material, but stay 0.04 away from the model, so I don't get any tool marks from the roughing bit. And we'll go ahead and we'll calculate that. And I'll go ahead and preview it. Just what the heck. And we can see it's taking a little bit more of a roundabout approach, but that's all right, doing it in several passes. Just to, again, remove most of the material here. Okay, there we go. Now, because I didn't go into material setup and put that 0.01, I didn't recess it 0.01, I have a flat spot in my model. Now that may or may not be in the finishing tool path because I have that 40 thousandths of an inch to play with here. Okay. So let's close this. And now we'll create our finishing tool path using the selected vector with a boundary offset of 1/8 of an inch. And we'll calculate. Okay, now we see here this is the edge of this dish. But we see the bit's going to come out here as well. Let's take a look at what that means. And we'll preview that tool path. And we can see that it's carving the entire thing. My flat spot is gone. But let's pay attention to what happens out here on the edges. Again, the main advantage of using a boundary offset in either a roughing or finishing tool path is it allows the bit to carve beyond the edge of the model. Well, on a dish component, the edge of the model, boom, there we go. The edge of the model it's a more dramatic appearance. On a dish, it's not. So let's go to a straight dot view and take a look. There's no evidence out here that that bit even carved out onto this surface, which is a good thing. Okay. Let's go back here, and I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go back into the finishing tool path, and I'm going to remove that boundary offset. And let's see if it makes any difference in that appearance. Calculate. All right. Now we'll take a look at what this finishing tool path looks like after, with no boundary offset. Okay. David Hittenberger, the man who brought this entire thing up, says, does the software use the 1/8 diameter or the diameter of the tapered bit at that depth of cut? I.e. tapered diameter is bigger than the tip. Which diameter does the software use? It uses the diameter of the tip that you have entered. It doesn't care if it's 1/4 inch shank. I'm using my hands like you can see. The shank, let's say you have a 1/4 inch shank, but it's a tapered ball nose that goes down to 1/8 of an inch. The diameter it's going to use is that 1/8 of an inch. It's not going to take into account the larger cutting area within that taper. It's going to use the tip of the bit, so the smaller diameter. We look out here, there's no difference. So on a dish, using a boundary offset isn't strictly speaking necessary. It's only on a raised, let me close my preview here, go back into the 2D view. It's only on a model where the actual model is raised and not within a dish that a boundary offset is usually necessary. In fact, if I'm doing any kind of a raised carving like this and not something that's in a dish, I put in a boundary offset. It just cleans up so many things that I don't even bother trying without it. So on a raised model like this, boundary offset of the diameter of the bit that you're using to carve with, be it roughing or finishing. So let's jump over here and see if you have any other questions. And again, if you have any questions for anything that I've presented or anything that I haven't, maybe it's off topic, by all means, feel free to put it in the chat over here. So until then, let's get into one off topic that H Center has posted. Says an off topic one, trying to create a series of 140 something toolpaths that need to be cut in order from its original file for a smaller material to a new file on a larger board. I haven't found a way to copy toolpaths between screens. Okay, let me ask you this. Are you talking about between different sheets, or are you talking about, excuse me, or are you talking about a completely different file? If you're talking about a completely different file, then the easiest way to do it is go into okay, different files. All right. Then the easiest way to do it would be to go up here and do a save as under a different name. Then make the changes that you need to make. So basically what you're doing is copying this file. For instance, I've only got 2 toolpaths, but I understand what you mean. You don't want to go through and play around with 140 some odd toolpaths. And I don't blame you a bit. So I haven't even saved this, but let's say I call it Eagle. I would then come in and do a save as Eagle Larger. Then come in and make your changes in the job setup or material size or anything like that. There is a way to copy the toolpath group, but what you would be doing is, and um, this is a whole nother thing to get into, and that is creating toolpath templates. So yeah, exactly. It took me a full day to get them in the right order in the first place. Yeah, 100%. I understand. So what you'd want to do is create toolpath templates and then select all of the toolpaths. You have 140 some odd. And save all visible toolpaths as a template. So now this is going to save the toolpaths that you can then open in another file. Load toolpath template. Okay. But it doesn't save any of the artwork. So if you have vectors or 3D shapes or anything like that, your best bet is to go ahead and copy the entire file, then go in and make, say, larger sheets and larger pieces, or just more pieces. But if that artwork isn't necessary, like I could save these two template as a template. Said, yeah, but it doesn't copy into a completely different file then. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. If you save this, if you save this, do a save as under a different file name, everything you have here is saved. Now, if you're using a toolpath template, it's only going to do the toolpaths. You'll then have to put the artwork out here, then recalculate all the toolpaths. You're going to have to recalculate all the toolpaths no matter what. So this is also where putting artwork on separate layers and associating the toolpaths with a layer comes in handy. Because then you can just put in different artwork on each of the appropriate layers, then recalculate all toolpaths, and anything on that layer that's associated with a toolpath here is going to be carved. So, how do I import the template of toolpaths into the other file then? I'm not clear on that. If you save this as another file, okay, you're talking about the templates. All right, right here is load the toolpath template, and it's looking for a toolpath template file. In which case, then that would import this template that's saved. Then you would have to recalculate all the toolpaths to use the artwork that you have out here. Whereas if you do a save as, you can just go in and change sizes and shapes, then recalculate all the toolpaths, and you're done. Just hit that button right there, recalculate all toolpaths. So toolpath templates come in real handy if you're using the same toolpaths over and over and over again. Now on a project file that is that complex, hoping that you have your artwork associated with a layer that that the toolpath was calculated for, associated with and calculated for. Brooks Martin says, how about the version 12.5 feature to copy toolpaths to another sheet? Yes, that's why I was asking if he was trying to copy the toolpaths to another sheet, or was he trying to copy them to another file? But he said he was trying to copy them to another file. So no matter what you do, whether you're copying toolpaths to another sheet or you're copying them to another file, you are going to have to recalculate those toolpaths. Because, for instance, the toolpaths here for this sheet are going to be different than the toolpaths for this sheet. So I could copy these toolpaths to this sheet, but then I'm going to have to recalculate them because I got a different model and I've got a different vector. And I'm not using a profile cutout here. So for doing a lot of similar types of work, copying toolpaths to another sheet is real handy. So, thank you very much, Mauricio. Thank you for watching and thank you for commenting. I do appreciate it. when it comes to that complex of a file, 8 center, what I would do is I would hold off doing anything to that file itself. Okay. Make a copy of it and do all your explorations with that copy. You know, you can go into the folder that file is sitting in, right click, copy, create another folder, and paste it into that folder. So now you have 2 copies of that same thing. Save the original, do any modifications on that copy, and just try it. And if you mess up, stop, delete that file, copy it again, and do all that. I wouldn't mess with that 140 toolpaths, man. I'd hate like hell to see that get messed up. So much like when you're touching up photos, touch up the copy. Same here. So it says incorrect parameter. You might have to go in and select the artwork that you're attempting to calculate for each toolpath, which is, like I say, where the advantage to associating toolpaths with a layer and putting the artwork for that toolpath on its own layer. Anything on that layer will get calculated. When you say it's an improper or incorrect parameter, it may be trying to cut artwork that isn't there, or it may be trying to fit a tool into a spot that it can't fit. So there are many different causes for that, which is why I say you're going to have to recalculate. You may have to go and recalculate each one manually if you didn't associate a layer with the toolpath. I don't know, it sounds like a pain, but this is where setup and organization becomes in real handy. Wade Custon says, finding my computer chugging manually tracing. Time for a PC upgrade, possibly. Maybe you might just need to add more RAM, or you might want to add more RAM, or you might want to check on your video card. I don't know what kind of video card you have in your computer, but with the with Windows 10 turning into a pumpkin here soon, um, I've gone ahead and I've ordered another PC. It's supposed to be here Tuesday. We'll see. And that PC is going to be my main design PC. And the one that I use now for design is coming out here to replace this one because it's running Windows 10 and can't upgrade to Windows 11. So a fairly new, decent gaming PC with a real decent video card is coming out here. And an even bigger, better, high-speed, low-drag gaming PC is going to be my main design PC. So it uh, it might be time to upgrade, especially if it's running Windows 10, because again, Windows 10 turns into a pumpkin next month. So another thing to look at with a slow computer is what other programs are open and using resources and what is running at load time. Yeah, absolutely. The more things you have running in the background, the more likely you're going to run out of one resource or another or get dangerously close to it. So, David Hittenberger says, I think if you change any material settings in something that has a toolpaths done, it will tell you it will recalculate them. Yes, more often than not, yes. We'll, for example, come back over here, and I'll go into job setup, and my material is 12 by 12. I'm going to make it, what's my height? My height, I'm going to make it 10. So I've made the material a little bit smaller. Didn't change my XY position, so I don't have to redo any of that stuff. I'll just click OK. Now, it did not ask me if I want to recalculate toolpaths. If I go over here and I draw it, oh, let's look at the 3D view. It just did it. It didn't need to recalculate the toolpath. Why? Because my XY is in the center. That didn't change. The height of my material changed. It didn't matter. It didn't affect the carve at all. Now, if I go over to the other, it didn't tell me I need to recalculate either, because again, all of this takes place from the center of the toolpath, of the material. Now, if I had changed, let's go into material setup. If I change my XY datum to the bottom left, now I need to recalculate. Okay. So do I want to recalculate now? Yes. And it's going to take a while, as you see. Okay, now it's recalculated. So if it does need to recalculate the toolpaths, it should always give you that message that the toolpaths need to be changed because the values have been changed. The material values have been changed. Let's go back over here, go back to the 2D view, jump out of here, and go into this one. And what am I going to do here? I'm going to change something. What do I want to change? I know. I'm going to job setup. And down here, I will change my XY datum position to the bottom left from the center. Click OK. Now that it has to recalculate the toolpaths because the way it was set before, the model was calculated, the toolpath on the model was calculated from the center of the model. It's not anymore. Now it's being calculated from down here. So yes, I have to recalculate them now. Calculated, and now I come back over here and go into the 3D view, and there we are. So it will not always ask you to recalculate the toolpath if it doesn't need to. It will tell you to recalculate the toolpath if it does need to rather. Okay, so let's see here. Dwayne Ruthig says, also try not to save files to your desktop, only the shortcuts to files. The desktop uses RAM. Yes, I agree with that. If you're storing a bunch of stuff on your desktop, that does use a lot of your resources. And that's so if things on the desktop need to be accessible right now, real quick. And so if you put a file on your desktop, it's going to use a little bit of resources to keep that file ready. So when you double click on it, it opens real fast. But if you go into a folder and double click on it on that folder, the response time is a little bit slower because now it has to allocate those resources to open that file. Whereas on your desktop, it's already allocated those resources constantly. So the more you have on your desktop, and a lot of folks don't know this, the more you have on your desktop, the more it's going to tend to slow down your computer. So use a good file system and put things in folders. Now, it's okay to have a shortcut to a folder you use a lot on your desktop, but normally I don't even bother. Things I need access to now are on my desktop. Things I don't need access to now are put away in a folder somewhere, usually on an external hard drive or SSD drive. Does that apply to a folder on the desktop? Yes, you need to be able to access that folder now. It's okay to have a folder on your desktop, but it's better to have the folder tucked away somewhere else on your hard drive or external drive or internal drive, whatever, and have a shortcut to that folder on your desktop because a shortcut's going to use less resources than the whole folder. So, Sam Spade. Dave, thank you very, very much. Totally unnecessary, but greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for the $20 super chat. I greatly appreciate it. So, um, 8 Stenner. Wow. Let me back up and take a drink of coffee and try that again. 8 Center, still talking about that file. What you're going through with this and trying to copy all the toolpaths, that's one of the reasons why I suggested you do a save as and save that file under a different name. Then go in and make any artwork changes or make any size changes if it's the same artwork. Um, uh, then recalculate all your toolpaths and go that way. It transfers everything. If you are if you are using the toolpath templates without any artwork or without the appropriate artwork there, if you don't have the vectors transferred over as well, it's going to give you incorrect parameters because it doesn't know what to cut. Nothing has been assigned to it. Mauricio, thank you very much. Even if I don't know English, I understand you perfectly. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate it. Um, I just wish that the same could be said for folks I know around here. Folks that are fluent in English sometimes can't understand me. So thank you. That was high praise indeed. Um, all right, let's see here. I think that's all of the questions that I see. Um, let's see here. Going back to see if I've missed any here. Uh, the short answer, Wade, is it might be time for a PC upgrade, especially if it's running Windows 10 or older. So that's all I'll say about that. Going back here, looking. I'm not seeing any more questions that I may have missed. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and It Center says I'm still clicking cancel on all these warnings. It must be involving material size differences and such. Yeah, it may be. And then again, it may be different thicknesses. It may be you've not selected the vector or there's no vector there to select. But yeah, it's going to make you go down the list and click on cancel on all 140 plus toolpaths. So let's see here. We go. Gene Scott says, change of subject. You can respond if you have time. Yeah, I have time. I imported an image from Google to Bitmap. Okay. I see the image, but when I try to calculate, the pop-up says a vector must be selected. Why? Uh, that's because you probably didn't do a bitmap trace. And what type of toolpath are you trying to calculate? If you're trying to calculate a vcarve toolpath, it needs vectors. If you're trying to calculate, well, any of the toolpaths, they need vectors. If it's a photo vcarve, then all bets are off. So what type of toolpaths are you attempting to use here? Now, there is a there is the sketch carving toolpath that doesn't need a vector. But I'm trying to figure out what I need to know is what kind of toolpath you're trying to cut. So while I'm waiting on that, if anybody else has any other questions. So, all right. You're trying to do a V-carve toolpath. Yes, you need vectors for that. It will not V-carve just an image. It needs to have vectors. And that's where bitmap tracing comes in. And what I'm going to do, I have a couple of videos on bitmap tracing. I will go get them and I will put them. I just wrote a note to myself. I'll get the links to those videos and I'll put them in a pinned comment at the top. It'll be pinned to the top of this live stream. But give me about, say, 5 or 6 minutes after we're done, and I will. I used to put stuff like this in the description, but people found it hard to find, so I'll just pin it into a comment, so it'll be the first comment you see on this live stream after we're finished live. It won't let me do it now. So, but yeah, I have several. I have a couple of videos on bitmap tracing, and I have a whole series on V carving. 8 Centers says, I discovered that Inkscape has centerline tracing, which is so handy sometimes. Yes, sir, it is. Yes, sir, it is. Just remember that in Inkscape oh, Steve. See, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about when you're dealing with Harneo Media. Steve is right there. He's got the playlist of all of my bitmap tracing videos there in the chat. Steve, you're a gentleman and a scholar. I don't know what I'd do without you. So, David Hittenberger wants to know what new computer are you getting? I'm getting an HP Omen. I believe it's the L35, I believe. I don't remember. It's supposed to be here Tuesday. High speed, low drag, got all kinds of funny flashing lights in it, stuff like that. So is what I'm bringing out here. It's the L35, 64 gig of RAM, one terabyte SSD main drive, and 1 terabyte SSD backup drive, a whole bunch of stuff. So, how will the licensing of Vectric come into play updating to new computers? Simply put, I download the software, install it, and it's done. You can have the software on up to 3 computers. And what it will do when I add the license is it will add the license to the list and then bump one off. I currently have the software installed on 2 computers that go online, and that's how it stays. When I replace one, it one goes away. Says, oops. How about the limit of 3? Yeah, you have a limit of 3 computers. If you try to add a fourth one that goes online, it's going to bump one off. Okay, so it keeps a list, a most recent list of computers that you have accessed from. So back up your database so you don't have to re-add tools. Absolutely, your database should stay up to date. You see me every once in a while I'm doing a screen share demonstration. It says this tool database is out of date. Do you want to update it? Well, I did that just before we went live because the tool database was out of date. Every time you add a new tool, upload it to the cloud. It's right there. Just upload it to the cloud. Hi, Mark. Can you explain REST machining? REST machining only comes in if you're using version 10.5 or older. Aspire. REST machining was not available in vCarve. REST machining is now available, starting with version 11, I believe, in vCarve and Aspire. And show you what I mean here. Let's take that eagle right there. REST machining is now, let's do 3D, go back into the 3D finishing toolpath. REST machining is now done right here. So I'm using an 1/8 inch tapered ball nose. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to select a second bit, my 1/16 inch tapered ball nose, select. And I'm going to leave my minimum detail at about, a little more than a little less than 2.5 thou. And I'll calculate. REST, the word REST in REST machining stands for, it's kind of it's not an acronym, more or less. The RE in REST comes from the word remaining, and the ST comes from the word stock. It's remaining stock is what REST is in REST machining. So now, if I turn off these, you'll notice I have 2 toolpaths. And the first one is a clearance pass. That's my 1/8 inch bit. That's going to come in and that's going to carve the entire model. Then the second one is the 1/16 inch bit that I just added, and it's just going to come in and it's going to carve the areas that 1/8 inch bit can't reach. That is REST machining. Now in version 10.5 and older, you could only select one bit here. You could only select one bit. So you had to jump through several hoops to add this second bit. So, now it's incorporated into the software. REST machining is no longer really a thing. All it is adding more bits here in the toolpath. But do know, it's going to create another toolpath for every bit you add. Okay? So if I come in and I select and I add, now I'm going to add I'm going to add my 1/4 millimeter tapered ball nose, which is basically like a hypodermic needle. And I'm going to bring my detail down to 0.11 of an inch. I calculate. I'm shooting for real long machine times too while I'm at it. Will do, Mauricio. I will go check the comments over there. Um, and Pete's asking, are you going to do a video if you upgrading the new PC? I hadn't planned on it. No, I don't really see a need to. It's fairly simple and very straightforward. Okay, so shut them all off here, and we're going to look at clearance 1. That is the 1/8 inch ball nose. Turn that off. Clearance 2, that is the 16th inch ball nose that's going to get in. It's going to carve everything that 1/8 inch ball nose couldn't reach. Turn that off and turn this on. That's the 1/4 of a millimeter bit that's going to come in and get the details that none of the other two could get to. Now, I'm just curious as heck. Let's do these in order, and we're going to preview those 3 visible tool paths. This is going to be intriguing. Now, we see that that 1/8 inch bit is carving the majority of that model. And see what happens here. I'm kind of eager to see what details that last bit's going to do, because it doesn't look like it's going to do much of the model at all. But you notice my boundary offset didn't change. It stayed the same for all 3 bits. The boundary offset is the diameter of the largest bit. You can just barely see that 1/16 of an inch end mill doing a little bit of detail work on the feathers and around the eyeball. And now that 1/4 millimeter bit going to come in and do a little bit around the feathers. Now that's purty. Now, just for giggles, I'm going to change the bit on this profile. I'm going to go to an 1/8 inch end mill, and let's see what we get. I don't really have a 1/8 inch end mill that'll reach this deep, but for demonstration purposes, I can fake it. That's going to get in there a lot closer. Now we'll preview that toolpath. That's a pretty eagle, I tell you what. Still got a little bit of flash there, but that's easily cleaned up with some sandpaper. A little bit right there as well, but that's easily cleaned up with some sandpaper. I can get that real fast. I have files that'll take care of that, files and rasps. Man, that's pretty good, actually. Okay. All right. So that's basically what rest machining is. It is simply carving away any of the material that the larger of the bits you add won't reach. And it's, it's great for getting detail, but as you can see with that 1/4 millimeter bit, the difference is really, the difference is so tiny. All you're basically doing is adding to machining time. Case in point, if we look at this right here, yeah, we're looking at 3 hours, 49 minutes. And I mean, the 3D Finish 3, that's that small quarter millimeter bit. That's 5 minutes we don't need. The 16th of an inch end mill, that did quite a bit of detail. I think that is something that we do need. And then the 1/8 inch bit, obviously, I'd rather have it carve out everything it can get to before we go to that little 16th of an inch bit. So, but we're still looking at almost 4 hours for this carve, which, all things being equal, isn't all that bad. So, okay, let me go back up here and see if I have any other. Looking at it, like Andy talking about backing up the database, and then Pete asking if I'm going to do a video of upgrading to the new PC. I can see where there would be some value to that. Now that I think about it, I'll see. It's going to depend on how everything goes. This is going to be it's going to be an adventure, because what I'm going to do is, not only am I changing out PCs, I'm going to be changing monitors around. Right now, I have two 24-inch monitors on my main design computer, and it's just too much. I need to take one of those 24-inch monitors and bring it out here, because the two monitors I have out here, this one is 20-inch, and this one here is 19-inch. So I'm probably going to take the 19-inch indoors to use as my second monitor, and move this one over here and put a 24-inch over here. That would probably end up being what I'm going to do. So it's going to be computer rodeo. But now, in thinking about it, Pete, I may go ahead and do that. I may make a video on it. David Hittenberger says, use a tapered ball nose for the profile, pros and cons. Well, the obvious pros are, it would be, depending upon the diameter, of course, it would be easier for it to get down in there into those real tiny. Well, let's bring this back over here. And we'll undraw that and go back into preview. The tapered ball nose, again, depending upon the diameter, might be able to get in here and cut these little webbed areas out. The problem you're going to have is, it's going to have to remember, and it's going to have to remember to stay out here, so that the cutting edges, I need my hands here, so that the tapered portion of the end mill doesn't cut into the model too. So it may work, it may not. The pro is, it may be able to get into that little tight area. The con is, it may cut into the model, or it may not cut in as much as you think. Pete says, have to remember to copy fonts over too. I will not be doing that. The reason I won't be doing that is I have too many fonts on this computer. I have about half as many on my main design computer, and when that comes out here, I'll be obviously using that. But and the number of fonts will be severely limited on my main design computer. I am not going to go crazy on the fonts like I did on this computer here. This used to be my main design computer, and it's a gaming PC, an HP Omen gaming PC. But I went absolutely crazy downloading and installing fonts. because I demonstrate a lot of stuff. But I also added fonts just because I liked them, just because I thought they were cool. And I have way too many fonts on this computer. So I utilized restraint on the main design computer, and I add fonts as I need them, not just to have them. And I find the number of fonts tends to be more hindrance than benefit. Having a lot of fonts to choose from slows down the work, because not only do you have the extra time it takes for the software to load all those fonts when you go into the text mode, um, but you also have the decision making process. If you have 15 script fonts to choose from, it's going to be easier for you to select one of those fonts for whatever project you need, providing it doesn't need something that's proprietary. A proprietary font for a certain project, that's a different subject. But if you've got 15 script fonts to select from, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to choose one than, for instance, in my case, where I have over 250 script fonts. Now I've got to go through those script fonts and figure out which one I want to use for this particular project. And what I found was I wasn't using most of them. 90% of them I wasn't using. I was coming back to 3 or 4, you know. So yeah, I just decided not to go crazy on the fonts. 8 Center says, I've been saving fonts for 20 plus years. I will always copy them over. I don't want to waste that time I put into saving them all and finding them again. And in that particular case, I don't blame you a bit. But remember, I'm a weekend warrior. I'm a hobbyist. I don't sell anything. I'm not into production. Anything I do is going to be for myself or my family. If they want something specific, I'll do it. I'll download and install the font. But if they're like me and say that's good enough, then that's good enough. I don't I I don't I don't need to have 2,000 fonts on my computer, which is why I'm not going to be copying them over. I will download and install a font as I need it. Now, having said that, there are 3 or 4 fonts that I use quite often. I will be going and downloading those and installing them. So, alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and end this. We'll wrap this up. Channel members, the Saturday night Zoom call BS session didn't happen last night. I was late getting dinner and all this other good stuff, so it didn't happen last night. So it's going to happen tonight. We'll do the Saturday night BS Zoom call on Sunday, starting at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. So, bring a beverage, bring a cheeseburger, bring a friend, bring whatever you want. Um, and again, you just have to be a channel member. Look on your membership tab and you'll find the link. If you have your email set up, you should get an email with the link to that Zoom call. Also, channel members, tomorrow, remember, members only live stream starting at starting at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, over this same channel. I don't know what we're going to talk about. It slips. My memory is slipping. Don't get old. It doesn't pay. I think I'm going to get rid of the beard because that's showing my age. That's no deniability now. But anyway, be there or be square. Next week, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do next week. But that's where you come in. Give me your suggestions. What do you want to see? Now, I've got a couple of good ideas here from folks that are asking about a couple of topics. But as David Hittenberger did, he sent me an email. Well, you can just comment. You can just go to the comments and say, how about a video on this? Or how about a discussion of that? Or how about a discussion of something? You want to see something demonstrated? I need to know. That's where I get my ideas for these live Q&As. See members only, see some of you tonight, see more of you tomorrow, hopefully. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about with all this members only stuff, or if you'd like to get some information on how to become a channel member, just click that little join button down there. It's right, should be right next to subscribe, but they move it around a lot, and I don't know why that is. Click on that little join button. What's going to happen? A video is going to play that's going to tell you about channel membership. Now, I had a question. How do I join without using PayPal? I don't have PayPal. That is set up through your Google account. So you'll have to go into your Google account and then set up other ways of paying. So you can do it without having a PayPal account. That's not mandatory, but you have to set that up in your Google account. I can't do that. I don't have access. I don't want access. So, other than that, I need to take off so I can get Linda and I fed. Again, thank you very, very much for your overwhelming love and support for my wife who recently had back surgery. We both thank you more and appreciate you more than you will ever know. So until tomorrow, channel member or tonight, channel members, um, until next week for everybody else. Have I ever visited Argentina? No, sir, I have not. But I hear it's beautiful. I've never visited Argentina. My overseas travel has been limited to Europe. Thank you very much. Y'all have a thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me. And until next week, y'all take care. Thank you.